We're going to go to Sean Rose. We're going to be talking about events surrounding and resulting from the G8 meeting earlier, I think it was last week, and how the overseas territories stuck together and what the result of that meeting was, and how we fared as a territory, and how the rest of the overseas territories whose economy depends so heavily on financial services fared. Keep it like right here, Spotlight. We're going to go right now to Sean. Sean, welcome to the Spotlight. What you got for us?
Good evening, Adrinka. Good evening, viewers. Let's start off by, first of all, stating categorically that the overseas territories, that their leaders, respective leaders of the overseas territories and crown dependencies, did not sign on to the Multilateral Convention on Mutual Administrative Assistance on Tax Matters, which was put forward by UK Prime Minister David Cameron on the Saturday, June 15th, before the June 17th and 18th G8 meetings.
Did they give a reason for that, Sean?
They did, and they particularly, Premier Dr. Smith, we may recall that last week he said significant appreciation was not given, if I may put it that way, to what the BVI has done over the years to ensure that it has remained compliant and that it is a robust financial services jurisdiction. The Bermudan Premier, Cannonier, he's also saying the same thing. In fact, he said that they have insisted that the overseas territories and crown dependencies did not get sufficient time to review the proposal put forward by Cameron.
What is the important thing they want to have come out of this, the sign of this agreement and come out of the G8 meeting in regards to the financial services sector and the overseas territories? Well,
particularly, I think it's of significant importance that we all realize that based on the information coming out, the overseas territories are more or less ahead of some of the very G8 countries themselves, like Russia, and in many cases, even the US and the UK as well. So what the leaders have been arguing, the overseas territories and crown dependencies leaders, is that we are already ahead in terms of our anti-money laundering measures. Why are you now trying to shift the goalpost, a term that Premier Smith raised just last week? Why are you shifting the goalpost, and why create this unlevel playing field?
Now, there's a lot of talk about revealing beneficial ownership. What is beneficial ownership, and how does revealing beneficial ownership impact on the financial services sector in overseas territories?
Yes, if I may describe it as being a layman term, the beneficial owner of an asset is the person for whose benefit it is being held. Basically, beneficial ownership arises when an asset is owned by one person. Let's say I am the owner and I'm the legal owner, and you as a trustee, you have the duty to use it on my behalf. So basically, there's no confusion there, but it does sound a bit complicated.
What would happen to us, and how would it impact us if we had to tell the international community the names of the persons who owns the companies that are doing business in the British Virgin Islands?
And you ask a very interesting question, because in my opinion, and based on the information I have reviewed, it is very likely that many of these companies, these owners, may move their businesses away from these islands and choose to go to maybe some of the very European countries who are advocating these new rules and new guidelines.
They're advocating these new rules and guidelines, but they themselves are not signing on to them.
Precisely, they haven't signed.
And Canada specifically is one of those countries.
And that's why the UK overseas territories and crown dependencies leaders said that they were not quick to sign on Saturday, June 15, because they were not clear. For example, the Cannonier said that they didn't want a situation where the agreement would change after they have signed. And that's very interesting, because it would have meant that their hands would have been tied after signing.
But I might be wrong, but it sounds like a trick to me, where the overseas territories sign, but the international community members don't sign, and then what happens is that the business shift, of course, from those countries who are revealing beneficial ownership to those countries who have signed on not to reveal beneficial ownership, which of course would put us out of business and shift the business towards them. And
your point is valid, because
I'm a cynical person. I'm always suspicious of the international community, and particularly Britain and America.
But your point is valid, because look at this stake, for example. the G8 summit, many are arguing it did not bring the big bang effect that they were anticipating in before the summit. In fact, when you look at the surface, or look below the surface, you're likely to see that there is no clear way forward in terms of how the G8 will actually police these new measures that they have introduced coming out of the lock-on declaration, which they presented at the end of the summit. And the Bermudan Finance Minister, Bob Richards, in fact, we have a clip.
Well, let's take a look at that.
He puts it very bluntly, in my humble opinion.
So it's a very sort of difficult and negative environment over there. And I believe that overseas territories and crown dependencies are to some extent being used as scapegoats and distractions from domestic policies and domestic policy failures. We know who owns companies in Bermuda. International companies, we know who own them because we've required them to tell us since the 1940s. And we've required them to tell us because we wanted to protect ourselves against them. But now they say they want to protect themselves against us. That's the irony that I found when I was in Britain.
Now, there you go, Bob Richards, he is finance minister over there in Bermuda. The national action plans that the G8 countries have agreed to draw up are guided by the 10 principles coming out of the lock-on declaration, as we said earlier. And we carried those in last week's news as well. But it's important to note that it is nothing new. When you look at all the information, if you look at it yourself and you peruse the information, you would see that those 10 principles are already underpinned in many of the company reporting laws in most of the G8 countries, except Russia. But you haven't heard anyone in the international media boxing away, punching away at Russia.
Neither at Delaware,
in the USA,
in New York or in London. You know, exactly. But what's great about what has happened, Sean, in my view, is the fact that the overseas territories united as one. They stuck together, and they were able to stem off whatever trickery the international community is trying to play on them. And that, and we've long been advocating for Caribbean people's unity, and I think that the leaders demonstrated the importance of Caribbean people coming together in our best interest, because, you know, whenever our interest conflicts with the UK interest, our interests will be subordinated. We, as we like to say, we'll get thrown under the bus. So, Sean, thanks for that report. Certainly, it's going to be, we're going to see some interesting developments coming, and hopefully we could stem the onslaught of the international community regarding such an important sector of our economy.